Hello and welcome to my review of the book How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. So why did I read this book? Well, I enjoy browsing Amazon, the book selection there, and that book comes up frequently as a well-reviewed book it has a lot of reviews. And so I would click on the books page and kind of read what it was about and read some of the reviews, and I thought to myself, oh, I don't really have that much interest in self-help books. I'm really more into history and works of nonfiction. But after seeing this book on Amazon for a few years and taking a slight interest in it, I decided to read it. This is really the first self-help book I've ever read. It's a new genre to me, but it didn't feel very hokey. It didn't feel overly repetitive, although I'll get into the contents of the book later. I do have to say, though, I was a little bit nervous going into this book simply because of the title, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I was kind of afraid it would be a guide on manipulating people. But as I read the book, I learned it was not that, and we'll kind of come around to that point again. So, what did I think of the book? I really enjoyed the book. It's one of those books, there's books that are easy to read, and there's books that are hard to read. And within the category of books that are easy to read, there's books that are easy to read just because they offer no new information, so you're just flying through them. And then there's books that are easy to read despite the fact that they are full of useful information because of the way that they are written is so understandable and well presented. And I think that this book definitely falls into that category. Dale Carnegie as an author is extremely conversational, and I think that that's actually mentioned in the foreword. And I definitely agree with that assessment. And he keeps the book interesting by filling it with a few repetitive examples from people's lives. One of the recurring examples is Abraham Lincoln. And the author is very well versed in Lincoln. I think he said he read every book out on him at the time, which might have been an exaggeration, but he definitely knew his facts. And throughout the book, there is a quote repeated from Lincoln: "A drop of honey attracts more flies than a gallon of gall." And I think that that definitely summarizes a lot of the key points of the work. His integration of really minute life stories from the Lincolns is definitely something that as an American we all know a little bit about Abraham Lincoln. So it was kind of relatable, and I enjoyed it. And I definitely learned a little bit about the president as well. He also includes examples from participants in his course, because this book developed not because he decided he wanted to write a book, but because he taught in a very successful course that turned a lot of people's lives around. And along with the course, he wrote a textbook, and as the textbook evolved and evolved, eventually it became what was published. He also has a few examples from his personal life that are pretty meaningful, such as he had a radio appearance where he misquoted the name, or no, the hometown of an author, and a woman from that town that the author was from got very offended and wrote him a scathing letter. And he talks about how in response to that letter he didn't write anything aggressive back to her, although that was his initial inclination, but instead when he visited that city where she was from, he actually found her in the telephone book. Keep in mind this is a ways back, and called her and apologized profusely, and they went on to have a good relationship. And there's a lot of examples like that throughout the book. Is the book still relevant is kind of a question that comes up a lot. It was published in the 30s from a class that was developed like 20 years prior to that, obviously continuously developed up until the point of publishing of the book, and then I believe the class continued even after that. And it was then later updated in the 80s to remove some verbiage and idioms that didn't make sense anymore. But even then, that's still a while ago now. And here's the thing, business back then, which is what a lot of the examples in this book are written about, was a lot more personal. There was a lot more face-to-face contact between people. So there was a lot more times where people could practice their interpersonal relationships at work. Unfortunately, in my opinion, that has gone by the wayside due to globalization and increased productivity and computers and everything. Yet, I think the books is not any worse for it. Just because, although the business world is vastly different than it was at the time of publishing, human nature is still the same. It's, he's drawing on sources that were 2,000 years old. He's drawing on stories from ancient Greece and Chinese philosophers. He's drawing from the times of Christ. Human nature hasn't changed that much, and at its core, this book is about human nature. And that kind of takes me to the thesis of the book, which I kind of condensed down to: be a genuinely good person who thinks about the feelings and desires of others and reap the rewards of doing so. This book kind of teaches you, or reminds you, that other people are just as focused with themselves as you are focused with yourself, and that in order to have good, fruitful relationships with other people, you need to play off of that. And it might sound like he's saying manipulate other people's desires, but he's really not. He's saying work with other people and understand them. He's saying genuinely care about their feelings, their desires, their wants. And so some of the common themes of the book are the importance of praising other people for things that they do well, the importance of recognizing other people's ego, also recognizing your own, the importance of smiling, the real importance of remembering other people's names and little details about them, and of course controlling the urge that we all have to insult other people. So in summation, should you read this book? Yeah, probably, if you're interested in improving your social interactions with other people. Even if you're not socially inept, even if you are considerate of other people's feelings, there's definitely going to be at least one chapter in this book where you feel like you've definitely fallen down in this aspect of your social development. I know for me there was a few chapters, and I'm not completely socially inept, I don't think. Given that this book is easy to read and filled with interesting information, I would definitely recommend it to anybody who has any interest in becoming better socially. And even if you don't think that you need it, you'll definitely get something out of this book, and it won't feel taxing to read. So I would go for it. Thanks for watching my review.